Guys, welcome back to Classic Guitar Rock. I'm Jeremy. The coronavirus quarantine continues. We're trying to make the most of it here, and I wanted to do another album you should own installment. And this album, I really think, didn't get the attention it should have gotten when it came out. Over the years, it has gained some traction. More and more people have discovered this album, and it has eventually reached platinum status, I believe. So, and that took decades, right? I'm talking, of course, about the first Montrose album. Now, if you were to hear this album, you'd think, yeah, that's a good album. But then if I were to tell you that it came out in 1973, to me, that's mind-blowing, because this album sounds 10 years ahead of its time. You think about what album sounded like in 1973. What did Deep Purple sound like in 73? What did Led Zeppelin sound like in 73? Which are great bands and great albums. But this album, in my mind, sounds 10 years ahead of its time. I mean, you hold this up to an album that came out in 80 or 81 from production value-wise, the guitar tone, it's the drum sound, the way they record. It's just a great album. It's recorded or produced by Ted Templeman, who, of course, later did Van Halen. He knew a little bit about getting good guitar sounds, right, on an album. But this is just a watershed album that didn't get the credit it deserved when it came out. It was on the Warner Brothers label, and they at the time also had, who did they have? They had Doobie Brothers and Deep Purple. And the story goes that Warner Brothers just kind of thought, well, we've already got Deep Purple, we've already got the Doobie Brothers, that we don't really need this band. So they never really promoted it like they should. Of course, many of us think of Montrose, that first album, as the debut of Sammy Hagar. And it was, right? And he does a phenomenal job on that album. But Ronnie Montrose, the guitarist, again, in 1973, I can't think of other guitar players that were doing what he was doing in 73. Now in 78, 79, 80, yeah, but his sound is very much not like a 1973 guitar sound is. Even Michael Schenker, right? He was 74, 75 till he really came on the scene. I think Ronnie Montrose was really a pioneer in terms of rock guitar. His use of feedback, harmonics, just a great guitar player, great riffs, definitely some Led Zeppelin influence. I mean, you listen to the beginning of Rock Candy, and there's that John Bonham style drum beat, and the massive guitar comes in, and then you got Sammy Hagar. One of my favorite songs of all time is on this album, Space Station Number 5. Just a phenomenal song, kind of in the vein of, futuristic, Soylent Green, Logan's Run, Planet of the Apes type. That was kind of popular in the early 70s, right? And that's kind of the theme of that song. But just a great tune, man. And there's some funky effects where they speed up the tape at the end and all kinds of stuff. So the band was Ronnie Montrose, who had played with Van Morrison, Herbie Hancock, Edgar Winter Group. Okay, you've probably heard Ronnie Montrose and weren't even aware of it. Playing on, and I don't exactly know if he was playing. I think that's him playing Free Ride, Edgar Winter. I'm not sure though. I don't know. I mean, there's debate as to who plays what on some of that stuff, but Ronnie Montrose had quite a pedigree in terms of who he had played with. He hooks up with Sam on the album. It says Sam Hagar, right? And then he's got Bill Church on bass and Denny Carmassi on drums, and the guys just rock. It's a great album. Some people call Montrose the first American heavy metal band. Are they? I don't know. But they were definitely a hard rock, ahead of their time band. For the guitar nerds out there, Ronnie Montrose swears that he got his sound running a Les Paul straight into a Fender Bandmaster. Bandmasters had 3 10-inch speakers in them, I think was the original configuration. And he talks about always having, he had extra speakers, and he was continually having them reconed, because he'd play one till he blew it out, and then always have new speakers he could swap out while the other ones were getting reconed. And he claims that he got his sound from just diming that Bandmaster, just cranking it up and getting the natural overdrive. Some folks say that he was using a super muff, or a big muff fuzz box at the time, and there may be some truth to that. I'm not sure, but he's got this massive rock guitar sound that was, like I said, 10 years ahead of its time. If you do not own this album, you need to own it. And obviously bands down the line like Van Halen, a lot of bands will talk about how Ronnie Montrose was a major inspiration. He never got the commercial credit, or they never made a lot of money. They were never that popular. But this was an album that influenced a lot of players, and I think had a major impact on the way guys played guitar later on in the 70s and 80s. He was one of those innovators that introduced a lot of the rock guitar vocabulary that guys were using down the road. So just a great album. I want to do a series on one of my other favorite bands, which features Ronnie Montrose, which is Gamma. I won't talk a whole lot about Gamma in this video, but that's one that I definitely want to talk about, because they're an important band also. But for now, let me just say, go get this first Montrose album. My favorite. Some people like Paper Money better. Personally, I think the debut album is the best Montrose album. So go out and get it, and listen to it very loud and enjoy it. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.